The Times Square bomber. We didn't talk too much about this. There was an incident in Times Square. Street vendors noticed the threat in a vehicle from Connecticut. They alerted the authorities. Long story short, they found the man who had set up this bomb, potential explosion in Times Square. His name is Faisal Shahzad. He's a 30-year-old born in Pakistan, living in Connecticut, U.S. citizen since April of 2009. He was actually on an Emirates Air flight from JFK to Dubai. He was already on the flight at the time that he was arrested. Once again, how was he able to get on the flight if there was an alert issued? Well, we know that security agencies in the U.S. don't always have the best track record of communicating with each other. That we know from experience. He admitted attempting the car bombing. He said he had trained at a Pakistani terrorist training camp. This is according to U.S. officials. Eric Holder also said that Shahzad's intent had been to kill Americans. He was charged in a federal court in Manhattan with terrorism and attempted use of a weapon of mass destruction. There were also more than a dozen arrested by Pakistani officials in connection with this. Here's what he had: gasoline, firecrackers, gunpowder, propane, a pressure cooker, fertilizer, alarm clocks, and some other stuff. The vehicle was actually set ablaze, but it did not detonate. Where's the controversy here? We know that there are people who want to do these things to Americans and to those in the U.S. New York certainly represents the United States. We know these things will continue happening. We need to get better at preventing them. That's not where the controversy is. The controversy is that Republicans immediately start insisting he should not be Mirandized, which he was, nor should he have access to an attorney. Now, hold on a second. He's an American citizen who committed a crime in the U.S., and I know our conservative friends will say, wait a second, no, he was working in connection with those in Pakistan. There are reasons why this should not be just yet another crime like domestic violence. And Kit Bond apparently isn't too fond of American citizens having the right to an attorney either. He said that both of these fellows on Christmas Day, the underwear bomber, and New York and Times Square have enough evidence that you could convict them. You don't need to Mirandize them. You don't need to give them that warning and potentially shut them up and give them a lawyer who will tell them to be quiet. How long does Senator Bond think the Justice Department should be able to hold an American citizen without giving them an attorney? This is an American citizen. If we open up and fortunately, Lewis, we aren't talking about what decision will be made. He was Mirandized and he is being tried in an American court, which I think makes sense. Now, do you think it makes sense? New poll on midweekpolitics.com. Do you believe that the Times Square bomber should be tried in an American court or in some sort of military tribunal or separate system, or you don't know? That's the new poll on midweekpolitics.com. What's your thought on this?
I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. If you want to change the legal system, that's a completely different story. But, don't make exceptions. I mean,
based on how you feel about a particular case.
Right.
Well, I think you're right. And, Ann Coulter getting involved here, saying the liberals are always rooting for the terrorist or the suspected guy here. I'll actually play a clip for you of Ann Coulter. She says liberals root for the savages, for the Nazis, for the terrorists. I just don't know. Take a listen.
Liberals always they have an instinct to root for barbarians against civilization. They always do it. Why did they take the side of the Soviet Union for 20 years?
Is it because they feel that America has brought the terrorism on itself by not giving Faisal a free home or more coats? Is that why? That we're bad because Faisal couldn't make it?
Okay. It seems the only explanation for this that I see is Ann Coulter must be getting upset that Glenn Beck has escalated the craziness level to make her almost seem like a reasonable person. She's forcing herself to come up with something more ridiculous. Liberals always root for the savages of civilization. No reason to delve into it too much more, but Ann Coulter doing what she can to best Glenn. It's hard to best Glenn Beck at this point.
It is. Ann Coulter's a professional, though, and this is an exceptionally ridiculous comment that I'm sure will get her lots of attention. I mean, the next step, honestly, is probably, taking clothes off and flashing the camera during these interviews.
I wouldn't be surprised. She just has to do whatever she can to one-up Glenn Beck.
If you're an ugly woman, I apologize. Oh, you've got a double cross, because if you're an ugly woman, you're probably a progressive as well.
Okay, and then Sean Hannity also coming up with an incredible idea. He says, you know what? The Iraqis need to pay us back for their liberation. They need to pay the U.S. back. Listen to Sean.
Let me go on one other issue with you. You are not supportive of the war. You were not supportive of the war effort in Iraq. You're not supportive of the war effort in Afghanistan.
And originally I was. Originally Afghanistan was about getting Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda.
But you're not any longer. You think we should pull out?
Well, they're not there. And we're building roads, schools, bridges, hospitals in Iraq and Afghanistan. We're borrowing 43 cents out of every dollar right now that we're spending. I just think that we've bankrupted ourselves and that we're going to be of no use to anyone worldwide as a bankrupt nation.
I actually have had an idea. Nobody listens to little old Sean Hannity, but I'm like, I think the Iraqis, with all their oil resources, need to pay us back for their liberation.
Right.
Every single solitary penny.
I really thought that from the beginning. I thought that was kind of part of the issue.
So Hannity actually contends that Iraq owes the U.S. all the money we spent on invading and occupying it for the past 7 years against the consensus opinion of Americans in this country. I bet the families of those estimated 100,000 plus innocent civilians who we liberated from their existence on the planet would be more than happy to pay us back, right? All of those innocent civilians that have been killed, let's ask their families for the money back. Saddam Hussein was a horrible guy, one of the worst ever. Bush and company misdirected us to get us in there in the first place. We know that. Iraqis didn't ask us to go in.
It's not like the Iraqis had a vote on whether or not America should come in.
They didn't ask us to go in. They wanted us out overwhelmingly for years now, and we are now going to charge them. It's an incredible suggestion from Sean Hannity, but an interesting one. Stay with us. Check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/midweekpolitics. We'll be back.
This is Midweek Politics with Dave Pakman.
Midweek Politics is brought to you in part by Jackson & Connor, classically modern men's apparel in Northampton, Massachusetts on the second floor of Thorne's Marketplace, and by DIF Design, specializing in custom business websites at difdesign.com. To find out more about underwriting Midweek Politics, visit midweekpolitics.com.